Thank you. And thank you, Administrator Guzman, for joining us today. As we've heard, oversight of the SBA is one of the most important functions that our committee here serves. And given the unprecedented last few years, it will continue to be very important. And I completely agree. The PPP and EIDL programs were enormously successful at helping to sustain millions of small businesses during the worst months of the COVID-19 pandemic. And it's also unfortunately true that these programs saw high rates of fraud, including in the district that I represent. And, just one example is that a business owner in Overland Park, Kansas, had to deal with fraud due to identity theft. And obviously that was through no fault of their own. And I also want to just highlight and thank your team for helping with some of my constituents to quickly close out their cases just recently, ensuring that they wouldn't be held liable for these fraudulent loans. But of course, there's still work to do. We're hearing about that. And so, Administrator Guzman, I was just hoping to hear maybe a broader description of some of the anti-fraud efforts, whether it's the PPP or EIDL programs, because I know that that's an area that you all are working on, and I just want to make sure that we have a good understanding of what the anti-fraud efforts look like.
Sure. On the PPP program, there were more limited controls when launched for speed, and so we tried to add certainty to the process, and added, of course, the do not pay system review to both COVID EIDL and PPP, as well as, of course, on the EIDL program, added the collection of tax returns. We want to ensure, of course, that in the Biden-Harris administration that we limit fraud, abuse, and so we have been following the recommendations of the IG and the GAO around our capital programs to ensure that we implement a fraud risk management framework. Again, we have hundreds of people working on fraud at the agency, but the collaboration across program offices is key to ensure that they receive the support and structure that's recommended by the IG and the GAO. So, we think that the controls combined with the management framework is what positions the SBA for stronger success outcomes on fraud. And we've seen that come to fruition. The IG has personally commented to the committees that SBA's culture from the top has shifted. We've been implementing against recommendations at a steady pace to ensure that we solve for some of the pandemic relief program holes and can deliver certainty and speed at the same time. We've demonstrated that now with the EIDL program reforms.
Speaking of the OIG recommendations related to the SBA's pandemic relief programs, I know you mentioned including tax returns and beefing up the certainty of the programs and the collaboration that's been happening. Can you speak to the number of recommendations that OIG made to address some of the anti-fraud efforts that you've been implementing? How many are still pending? And then do you have a timeline for the implementation of those recommendations?
It's a continuous process. We've closed, on the GAO side, we've closed 6 of the 8 high-risk list items and 8 of the 15 priority, and obviously continue to try to drive towards successful outcomes with the GAO. On the IG, we've done 14 of the 21 management challenges and, over 100 of their, regular ongoing enforcement actions. And so, we know that obviously, the pandemic relief was a huge portion of all of those findings. We continue to try to drive through that portfolio, identify fraud, and work collaboratively with the IG to ensure that those individuals are prosecuted and those funds collected.